For years, we've been told the same story, a story passed down through generations, taught to children, sung about in carols. Christmas, the season of joy, of togetherness, of love. But what if we've been lied to? What if everything we believe about this holiday is nothing more than an illusion? A mask to cover something much darker, much older. Before the Christmas tree, before the stockings hung by the fire, before the cheerful songs of joy, there was something else. Something that has been hidden from you, buried under layers of tradition, wrapped in glittering lights. The truth about Christmas is far from what we've been told. It's a story of bloodshed, fear, and rituals far older than the birth of a child in a manger. A story that will make you question everything you think you know about this time of year. Long before Christmas became the cheerful holiday we recognize today, this time of year was feared. It was a time when the world stood still, and the veil between the living and the dead grew thin. The winter solstice, the longest night of the year, marked a turning point in human history. It was not a time for celebration, but for survival. Ancient cultures, from the Celts to the Norse, celebrated the winter solstice not with joy, but with fear. They believed that the dark spirits of winter would claim the souls of the living. To protect themselves, they performed rites, rituals meant to appease these malevolent forces. People didn't sing carols or exchange gifts. They offered sacrifices, animal sacrifices, sometimes even human sacrifices. Blood was spilled, offerings made, to ensure the survival of their people. But instead, that's been turned into a different story, one about a Santa Claus, the jolly old man who brings gifts to children. We've all been told this story, a plump, bearded man who lives at the North Pole, making toys for every child on Christmas Eve. But do you know the true origin of Santa Claus? The real story behind this mysterious figure? Santa Claus was never just a gift bringer. He's rooted in something far darker. In pre-Christian Scandinavia, the Norse god Odin would ride across the sky on his eight-legged horse, Sleipnir. He wasn't delivering presents. He was leading the wild hunt, a terrifying army of the dead. Odin, the All-Father, would ride through the heavens, followed by ghosts and spirits, collecting the souls of those who had displeased him. In pagan belief and understanding at that time, parents would warn their children about what would happen if they weren't good, if they didn't behave. Because in their reality, Odin was never believed to be bringing gifts to the good children. He was marking the bad ones for death. The mischievous would be dragged off into the night, never to be seen again. And you think the Christmas tree is just a festive decoration? Think again. The evergreen tree, so central to the holiday, has roots that trace back to pagan rituals. This was mostly derived from what the ancient Celts believed. They thought the tree represented something like the Axis Mundi, or the world tree, except their evergreen tree wasn't considered a great thing, or a symbol of life. It was the tree of death. The Celts believed that the evergreen tree held the spirits of their ancestors, but it wasn't a peaceful rest. No, those spirits weren't at peace in the tree. They were trapped between worlds, waiting for the darkness to consume them. And those Christmas lights? Those twinkling lights we hang on the tree to make it sparkle? The glowing ornaments, the bright stars? They're not just to decorate. In ancient times, they were meant to ward off evil spirits, to keep the darkness at bay. You see, Christmas wasn't always a time of goodwill. It was a time of survival. As the years passed, the pagan practices were buried, replaced by Christianity. But the dark truths remained, hidden, reformed, and twisted into what we now recognize as the holiday season. But the roots of Christmas still run deep in our collective psyche, buried beneath the layers of tinsel and mistletoe. Even the family dinners, the feasts, which mean hours spent in the kitchen just to cook a bird. A day that we drive or fly thousands of miles to attend an elaborate meal on Christmas. Those ideas were once about much more than just food and holiday celebrations. They were a ritual of appeasement, a way of offering thanks for another year of survival. There were no Merry Christmas suppers in the ancient pagan past. There were offerings. There were prayers. And there was always the fear that the night would end with a visit from something far more terrifying than any Santa Claus, an ominous visit from death itself. And as for the presents, we've been led to believe they're gifts of love, tokens of appreciation, and we have learned to put an enormous amount of value on what we receive or give. But the ancient pagan tradition of gift-giving, where Christmas gift-giving was basically derived from, was originally meant to placate the spirits. Gifts were not given out of kindness. They were offerings, bargaining tools to stave off misfortune, to ensure another year of life. Nobody gave you a present because you were good. Instead, if your gift to the spirits or gods was acceptable, then you would be fortunate enough to be alive where someone could maybe give you a token of love or a so-called gift. That's the way they saw it. The point of it all is that even though you can find historical facts that there was actually a man named Jesus, in the English language, who claimed to be a savior, which there is no dispute here. And to believe that and celebrate who he claimed to be could never be the problem. But Christmas, as we know it, is a lie. It's a sanitized version of something far darker, far more sinister, even without pointing to the obvious commercialization of the birth of the Messiah. What we see on Christmas Day, the joy, the peace, the goodwill, is a carefully crafted illusion, a mask worn over a history we have been brainwashed to not even consider. Just eat, pass the gifts, turn on the game, and shut up. But the truth is, the holiday season that we now take it as was originally never about joy for those people whom were practicing false ideas about mythical gods. It was mostly about the survival of the pagans. These people were desperate, unlearned, and confused. They were heavily involved in false religion and myths passed to them from ancient misunderstood stories. And because they had no explanation to why they were suffering, they came to attributing it to unseen forces. So they became concerned with things like appeasing the spirits of the dead, honoring the old false gods, and trying anything to keep the darkness and tragedies at bay. The problem is that once they began to come out of their ignorance, when Christianity poked its head in the world, they still held on to myths and had problems letting go of the past ignorance. This eventually foamed to the top and infiltrated Christianity and its traditions. And that is what also blended into what we call Christmas today. So the next time you hang your stockings, or decorate your tree, or gather around the table for Christmas dinner, remember this. Even though some people are able to focus on the reason for the season, Christmas itself is honestly not a celebration of Jesus' birth. It's a reminder to the smart minds of what lies just beyond the veil. There is a thin line between true religion and false religion. Thanks for watching this through. Subscribe, comment, and please come back to the Anything History channel for more powerful stories like this one.